Hey there and welcome back to Mutant Year Zero. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of our Iron Mutant playthrough, in which we will finally head south again. After exploring Izza and Fala high up north last time, today our search for Hammon takes us back into the other direction. And since we finished that last episode taking care of basically everything that needs to be taken care of here in the Ark, we are more or less good to go, so let's quickly assemble our squad and then move out. Now, before we get going, we quickly want to unlock Twitch Shot with Selma. We already have that ability on Bormin, but she has access to it as well. But Selma can much more easily get to the high ground to negate the aim penalty, which arguably makes this ability a bit more useful for her. And because we will need this mutation soon enough, we also want to make sure that she has it equipped, alongside the ancient pistol, the Rambino and a glow stick. Bormin's loadout meanwhile remains largely unchanged. Ability-wise we are going with Hog Rush and Twitch Shot as well, while Dux goes back to the crossbow for the time being, with the boomstick as a secondary weapon and Skull Splitter as his minor mutation. And that is all. With that setup we are now heading out to the Iron Serpent, the first of two areas that we will complete today. Alright, here we are, and the first thing that we want to do is head right for some scrap, before we then keep going straight ahead until we reach the train tracks.
I heard of these before. Never saw them. Weird how they're all connected.
They got wheels. A lot of them. These things moved?
Something's not right here.
Ah, this is gross. Look at this feeding frenzy. We got ourselves a zone dog problem here. Yeah, doggy.
Okay, so we want to mentally prepare for zone dogs while we are reading through this note here, in which Stalker Oscar mentions an ancient grog storehouse. It is supposed to be somewhere down south, which means that sooner or later we will very likely run into it. For now though, we are heading back to the train, and for the time being we want to stay to the left side of it. A little further down this way we can find an isolated pile of scrap. Other than that, however, there is nothing else of value between the map entrance and the train, so we don't have to go back down the shore here to search for goodies. Now, once we have the scrap, we want to head back to the train. Not only does it hold a good amount of loot for us, but it also has enemies on the other side.
Damn zone dogs! They were smaller in the old days, dumber too.
We got the weapons! Zone dogs got weapons and a paws! We are the kings of the zone, not them.
Then go to the zone dog and tell that to his face. You want to get eaten like Skeezel, Bam Bam, and Treepo? Go for it.
Yeah, big fun of me. Go ahead then, big horse.
So, this is like a house with wheels? That's not a bad idea, actually.
Right, so clearing out the train we just noticed a tank, as well as a few other ghoulish enemies. However, our immediate attention is drawn by a lone zone dog, and this is why we unlock Twitch Shot for Selma. Using her super tendons, she can easily get herself into an elevated position, and from up here she can now shoot twice for 2 guaranteed hits. She actually gets herself a critical hit, and as far as I know, if a critical is scored using Twitch Shot, then it always applies to both shots, so in one swift go the zone dog is more or less done for, and Dux can easily take care of the rest.
I hated that asshole.
Come on. Oh, I hope it's something good.
Alright, we have just found the Axe-Warrior armor, an absolutely crucial piece of equipment for this very area that we're in. As you can see, this armor makes its wearer immune to charge attacks, and that is exactly the type of attack that zone dogs use, but it also protects against tanks and their charge ability as well. Needless to say, we want to put it on immediately, and on who better than Bormin. His hog rush ability more often than not puts him at the forefront of the fight anyway, so I would say that he'll get the most use out of it. Now, after collecting all the remaining scrap and weapon parts in the area, we want to keep heading north, and we will soon find ourselves confronted by a mother zone dog, very clearly bigger and more powerful than the regular zone dog to the right of her, and therefore very much our priority in the upcoming fight. Now we're getting things started here with shots from Selma and Dux, and with those two we want to make sure that we stay a bit further over to the left. Not too much, we still want to get those guaranteed hits in, but far enough so that Bormin, who will in just a second use Hog Rush on the mother, is closest to the other zone dog. We are, by the way, also free to use loud weapons in this fight. Thankfully, we are far enough away from the rest of the enemies to be noticed, and the increased damage output will make the fight a little easier. To end our turn, then, we are using the aforementioned Hog Rush with Bormin. Not only will this incapacitate the mother zone dog, but also make him the nearest visible enemy. This ensures that he is the target of any subsequent enemy attacks, and that is exactly what we want, because with his new armor, they really can't do anything to him.
Come on!
Now, you may be wondering at this point why we used Hog Rush if Bormin is pretty much invincible anyway. And that is because the Mother Zone dog can unfortunately do a bit more than just use her charge attack. She is actually very similar to the ghoul Shaman, because she has the ability to call in reinforcements, which would bring even more zone dogs to the fight. And while we could of course sit here and tank those as well, I don't think anyone actually wants to see that. With the armor on Bormin, this fight is more or less a walk in the park anyway. We don't need to make it extra boring on top of that.
Over here.
Now, with the fight over and some more valuables collected, you may have also noticed that the tunnel ahead of us, yes, that is actually the exit, but we are leaving that exit be for quite some time. After all, there are plenty more enemies to kill on this map, and we also have another small side adventure planned as well, but more on that later. Regarding our next fight, we have a shaman and a butcher in the ruined house over here. They are unfortunately very close together and they will never move, so if we attack one, it seems like a smart idea to take out the other on the same turn as well. Sadly though, we do not quite have the necessary damage output for that, but with Magnus briefly replacing Dux here, we also don't need to. Making sure that Magnus has his puppeteer ability equipped and that both Selma and Bormin are ready to go with Twitch Shot, we can then get ready to fight. Before we engage, we briefly want to wait until the patrolling hunter has moved away a bit. There is absolutely no reason to involve them in this fight as well, but once the coast is clear we can ambush, even if only to throw the chem flare. Once again, that is completely silent and does not reveal our position, so once the flare is on the ground we can exit combat again and then immediately ambush once more. This gives us a much needed 25% aim bonus, which ensures that we will be able to take out both enemies without alerting the rest of their companions. Now, the idea here is to take out the shaman with double twitch shots from Bormin and Selma. And since Twitch Shot comes with a 25% aim penalty, the aim bonus is very much needed.
Stone cold.
The butcher, meanwhile, will be mind-controlled by Magnus. Like I said, we have no other way of taking them out before the end of the turn, and at that point they would alert their friends. So let's get them under our control instead, waste their turn with a dash, and then proceed. At this point, we are basically just waiting for the mind control to wear off so that we can attack again. Both the tank on the other side of the building, as well as the hunter that we saw earlier, are not aware of our presence just yet, and by taking out the hunter silently, we can also keep it that way for a while longer.
Bullseye!
Woo! Yeah!
Now, at the end of the fight, as usual, we can collect some loot. Most importantly, we want to investigate the weapon chest over here.
Regroup. Let's see if we got something useful.
Inside, we find another Rambino, so we now have 2 of them, and the additional damage output will very likely come in handy soon, because that tank with 30 hit points could be a tough nut to crack. So let's give that Rambino to Bormin now and also bring Dux back into the rotation. We definitely need him for that fight against the tank, and his increased critical hit chance from hiding could prove to be useful against that lone wandering hunter as well. That hunter is next, by the way, and also the reason why we took out the shaman and butcher first, because after the zone dog fight we needed at least 1 more kill to reset the cooldown on Bormin's hog rush. And that hog rush is what will ensure our undetected, sneaky success in this fight as well. Once again, 24 hit points are a bit more than we can currently deal in 1 round of combat, at least silently. So a 2-turn extension during which our enemy can also not cry for help is very much welcome.
Got you right!
This is, by the way, our 7th hog rush takedown of the series. My count was off by 1 when I mentioned this first in episode 4. Which means we only have 3 more to go until we unlock the End Stay Down achievement.
Sleep it off.
Amen to that!
With 1 quick critical hit, the hunter is now taken care of, and unfortunately there also isn't too much in terms of loot in the ruined building behind them, so we can quickly grab everything and then prepare for our final attack of the tank.
A bunch of ghouls are hiding out in a camp at the far end of those metal boxes.
Now, you might be wondering at this point why we are more or less heading away from our enemy, and the simple reason is that, just like in the last episode, we once again want to have the high ground. Unfortunately, this map does not really offer too many opportunities to get elevated. However, it does give us one rather obvious and still somehow pretty easily missable option, and that would be the top of the train. Yes, more or less the entire length of the train can be walked upon, and this gives us the perfect opportunity to launch an ambush from above. Now, before we attack, we quickly want to make a few changes. Just like in the last episode, we want to switch Bormin back to his Joker Stone Skin combination, as he will have to tank for us for 1 round. We also want to switch the Ancient Pistol back to Dux and give the crossbow to Selma. The pistol does 1 more point of critical hit damage, and since we're going up against an enemy with 30 hit points and 3 points of armor, that 1 point could be the difference maker. For our ambush, we then want to make sure that everyone is well hidden and of course attack first with Dux, because the combination of high ground and being hidden gives him a guaranteed critical hit to start off the fight. Sadly though, it is only guaranteed with the pistol, the boomstick doesn't quite have the range, but we can safely go noisy at this point.
Now it's getting fun.
Which is why Selma will follow things up with a volley from the Rambino. With Bormin then, we are activating the Joker Stone Skin combination again.
Let's get to it.
Come on! Ugly friggin' arc licker!
And we even have an action left afterwards to take a shot with him as well. Now, on the enemy turn, the tank moves in and, as expected, takes a shot at Bormin.
You friggin' gimp!
But he suffers no damage, gets back up quickly, and can retaliate immediately. With Selma, meanwhile, we just have to move a few tiles to still get a guaranteed hit, and that leaves our enemy with 8 hit points. And well, factoring in the armor, a critical hit from the boomstick will do 9 points of damage. We can also guarantee it if we use Skull Splitter, so let's do that and finish things off.
Amen to that!
Alright, and with that, the Iron Serpent has been cleared and we have actually reached level 30, which means Iridia back in the Ark has once again expanded her inventory, but she doesn't have anything that we desperately need to go back for right now. Instead, let us clear out the last few bits of loot on the map. Apart from some broken electronics that were previously protected by the tank, there really isn't that much more, but you may have actually seen it earlier, there is one more chest that we might want to look into.
Yeah, prize time.
Okay, so we have just found a Helm of Wisdom, which makes its wearer immune to electrical damage and mind control. Now, what's interesting is that we haven't actually encountered any enemies yet that can do any of that, but it certainly gives us a good hint of what might still be to come. Speaking of which, still to come is also our second area of today's episode, and before we follow those train tracks deeper into that tunnel that we saw earlier, we are instead squeezing through this narrow passage over here and head westwards instead of further south. So, welcome to the Scraplands. Now, before we jump in, as usual, a few preparations, but nothing too crazy. With Dux, we want to have Circuit Breaker equipped and with Bormin Hog Rush, while Selma will once again trade places with Magnus, but this time for a bit longer than on the last map. Mutation-wise, Magnus will then actually switch from Puppeteer to Chain Lightning. I think I have mentioned this before, we have achievements to unlock for both of those abilities, and with a cooldown of only 2 kills, Chain Lightning can also be used rather frequently.
The Alder's gonna be chewing our ears off if we don't find some scrap to bring back to the Ark.
And well, if it's scrap that we're looking for, then I think we have come to the right place.
This is a scrapyard. Hooey, look at all that scrap.
Why are we dumping junk? He wants junk. Junk. Didn't tell you. This one's a steel chariot. That one's another steel chariot. Well, broken steel chariot. Both of them broken really, but when they were working, ooh-wee, watch out. Broken steel chariot. Yeah, okay.
Right, so we already get a good look at a chunk of the enemies on this map here. We are starting things off easy though, by first taking out the Butcher. Chief Deadfinger as well as the tank will then follow at a later point in time. Now, moving in close with Dux gives us a guaranteed hit, and there is no need to maximize our damage with a forced critical. Nonetheless, he scores one, and that actually allows us to get our first Chain Lightning kill. This mutation does exactly 5 points of damage. As you can see with the tank over here, it actually also ignores armor, and if our enemies are standing too close together, the lightning can jump from one to the other, and that way deal a good amount of damage against larger groups. For now though, just the 1 kill is enough. 9 more and another achievement will unlock.
Hey guys, come here.
Come to me, Scrap. Come to Big Papa.
Now, I will admit, sneaking through the garage this early can be a bit tricky. As you can see, there are enemies all over the place, but it saves us some backtracking later and also allows us to find another artifact. And that artifact, by the way, is the reason why I highly recommend clearing this area before heading further south. It is the last one that we still needed to finally obtain what is arguably the most powerful of Prip's upgrades. But, of course, before we can unlock that, we have more enemies to take out.
I can faintly see the letters. T-O-R-C. Torch! But it's a pretty crappy torch, as it's not giving as much light as my flashlight, and it's too heavy.
Hammon had a similar device in his workshop. He said it was used to attach metal objects to one another.
Now, our next enemy is Chief Deadfinger, who is actually not that difficult to take out. Compared to the tank, he only has 1 point of armor and the same amount of hit points. And he is also performing a nice little patrol routine, which makes it rather easy for us to catch him isolated and off guard. And, well, the approach for this fight is pretty much as simple as it can be.
Don't get stupid!
We will have absolutely no trouble eliminating the chief silently. All that we need to accomplish that is another hog rush from Bormin, and because we killed a hunter, a tank and a butcher since the last time that we used it, the ability is ready to go again now that we need it. What's better than that is that Bormin does not even have to dash to use it, which means he can both hog rush and take a shot afterwards.
Yes, I did that. What do you think about that, huh?
As expected then, no action on the enemy turn, and so we now have 3 more shots to finish this fight. And yes, it may be a bit underwhelming to take out the only named enemy on the map this way, but the order in which we engage our enemies here is actually pretty important.
I'm gonna warn you again.
So we can't really afford to be picky.
Bingo.
Yeah! We did it!
Now, Chief Deadfinger also dropped a boiler weapon modification. I believe this should be the 3rd one in our collection, and as soon as we get back to the Ark, I think we'll find a good use for it. For now though, we can keep collecting loot, including a rather risky pile of scrap over here. Again, clearing out the inside of the garage is really not necessary this early, but I personally feel that the mission flows a bit smoother that way, which can of course be neglected a bit if you're playing at home for yourself with no one else watching. Now, with a medbot quickly approaching, let us just grab 3 more piles of weapon parts, before we then turn around and engage the robot. This is why we brought Dux's Circuit Breaker ability, because 24 hit points and 2 points of armor are once again a bit much to handle in one turn. Circuit Breaker meanwhile will disable the medbot for 2 turns, and by using it in combination with the Moth Wings, we not only have a guaranteed hit, but also a guaranteed critical as well. And with Bormin landing an unexpected critical of his own, we can now actually end the fight on this turn, because robots are very vulnerable to chain lightning, enough so that we can do 11 points of damage with Magnus here and destroy the enemy immediately.
Regroup.
Now at this point we still have 4 enemies left, including 2 hunters and a tank, but before we seek them out we will now actually grab the second of 5 magazines that are hidden in the game. You may remember how we grabbed the first one at the very beginning of the series. This map has the second one, well hidden in the bushes in the back over here, and in my opinion pretty easy to miss if you don't know what you're looking for. With the collection 40% completed though, it is time to continue combat, and just in that moment the second butcher makes their way over to us, so let's quickly take care of them. And I don't think I have to explain much here. Unfortunately, Magnus's chain lightning is still on cooldown, otherwise we would be able to get ourselves another easy kill with it. Which is actually the requirement for the achievement, by the way. Simply using chain lightning 10 times is not going to cut it. Instead, we have to use it 10 times to actually deal the killing blow.
And stay down.
Oh man, you are the shit.
Now, with 1 more enemy down, it is time to make a brief change to our squad. And this time, Salma comes in for Bormin. We don't really need to give her any sort of fancy equipment, just the pistol will suffice. The only thing she needs to do for us in this fight is to use her twitch shot ability. And yes, I know, Bormin has that same mutation as well, but we cannot get him elevated quite so easily, which is once again going to be our key to success here. Our target, by the way, is the hunter on the ground. The one on the roof is then up next. For the moment though, we want that one to move as far away as possible, so that our kill remains undetected. Once that is the case and the back is turned, we can have Salma jump onto the rooftop here, from where she has 1 or rather 2 guaranteed hits, even with twitch shot's aim penalty. The remaining 10 hit points will then of course be quite easy. Dux can shoot first and take care of 6.
Bingo.
And had he not pushed the enemy back, we could now actually use chain lightning again. However, as you can see, doing so now would attack the enemy on the roof as well. And like I said, we want to avoid detection for the time being.
Not so bad.
So we are down to the last 2 enemies, but we have also gained a level, and for a change we are going to use the points this time, specifically to unlock the Silent Assassin mutation with Dux. Once selected, Dux's critical hit chance from hiding gets doubled, unfortunately at the cost of Alpinist, which gives a 50% critical hit chance bonus from elevation, so we might be switching back and forth between the two a bit in the future. One last thing then before we engage our last 2 enemies. Salma has fulfilled her role for today, so Bormin can now come back and his talents will be needed for both of the enemies coming up. Now, like I said, our second to last enemy here today is going to be the hunter on the roof. I would have actually preferred to take them out before the one on the ground, but we are going to use Hog Rush here once more, and the hunter on the ground will almost always hear that, so in my experience it is better to take them out first. Our friend on the roof, meanwhile, is doing a small patrol routine, which in a moment will have them come closer to us. The last thing we want here is to accidentally knock them off the roof, as that might only complicate things. So as soon as they have moved a bit towards the center of the roof, we can launch our ambush. And like I said, this is going to be pretty straightforward. One shot each with Dux and Magnus to get us started, and then the hog rush with Bormin, which gives us enough time to finish the fight silently. And well, since we couldn't use Chain Lightning on the other hunter, we will use it now. This is already our third kill with this mutation. So the corresponding achievement is getting closer.
Over here!
And with that, we can now get ready for the tank. There is not a whole lot that we need to change before we engage, but two things are crucial. Number one, we want to put Stone Skin back on Bormin, and number two, we want to switch Dux back to Skull Splitter. With that loadout, we can then place Dux and Magnus into some conveniently placed cover up here on the roof, while Bormin will head back down to engage the tank face to face. Once everyone is in position, we can then go for the ambush, and as always we'll start things off with Dux. This time, however, the tank is in boomstick range, so let's open things up with a guaranteed critical hit.
That had to hurt.
Magnus can then follow suit with a volley from the Rambino. And then it's time for Bormin to once again activate Joker and Stone Skin.
Let's get to it. Come on!
Ugly friggin' arc-licker!
And despite not moving at all on this turn, he is also close enough to land a guaranteed hit of his own, and since we now have a second Rambino, we might as well use it. On the enemy turn then, the tank attempts a charge attack, but Bormin has the right armor to completely absorb that, and thanks to Stone Skin, he also doesn't take any damage from the shot afterwards. Our next turn then exposes a small miscalculation on my part, but don't worry, one that goes in our favor, because we don't actually need another critical hit here. If we only do regular damage with Dux, that would still be enough to get us the kill on this turn.
Yeah.
However, thanks to Alpinist, we do in fact get a critical, and that makes things even easier.
I owe you a grog. That was amazing.
Get your asses over
So
here.
here we are, the Scraplands have now been cleared as well. However, one more good thing is still to come.
This is a good haul. Let's get back to tracking Hammon. Let's see if we got something useful.
Over here in the corner, previously guarded by the tank, we find another slinger rifle. We already have one that we haven't actually used yet, but we'll definitely take it. Who knows, maybe an opportunity to test it out presents itself soon. Now, at this point, we might want to follow Bormin's advice from earlier though and continue our search for Hammon. A few more things are scattered around the map that we do want to grab before we leave, but as always at the end of an episode, we will return to the Ark first before our journey continues. This time though, we are not doing so immediately after clearing the map. Instead, with our pockets full of goodies, we are first returning to the Iron Serpent. I mentioned it earlier, after we fought the Zone Dogs, there is another exit over here on this map, and the area behind it is where we will start next episode's adventures. So it might make some sense to unlock it for fast traveling, otherwise we would have to traverse the entirety of the Iron Serpent again at the beginning of the next video, and I don't think there is any need for that.
Hopefully there's some junk in here that can help us.
So having made our way to the metal fields, let us now return to the Ark. This area is going to be a little different than the ones that we have cleared so far, but I won't spoil anything just yet.
As your search for Hammon leads you deeper into the zone, you are seeing things I've never told you about. Strange things. I have withheld certain facts from you because, well, your innocence gives you hope, and the Ark needs hope. But you ask questions, so I will give answers. When the world fell apart, a few of humanity's best and brightest constructed hidden bases where they could survive. These bases were called enclaves. One was deep beneath the ground, another at the bottom of the sea, a third orbiting the planet. The best and brightest, trapped inside their enclaves, grew paranoid, then hostile. They created machines that did everything for them. Metal monstrosities that granted their every wish, except immortality. The Ancients' best and brightest all died, but their machines remain. Farewell. Remember your elder's guidance.
Alright, and with those not at all worrying words from the Elder, I think it is time to make the cut for today. In the next one, we will take a proper tour through the metal fields, but for today, I think we can wrap things up. So, as always, if you enjoyed the video, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up, and if you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course do so, for example by subscribing to stay up to date, by grabbing some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or by checking out and maybe even pledging to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.